You are listening to In Conversation with Jennie and Mark.
Well, hello, I'm the Reverend Mark Adams from St Margaret's Church, Barking.
And I am the Reverend Jenny Adams from Holy Trinity, Prince Consort Road, South Kensington. Welcome.
Welcome. This is In Conversation with Jennie and Mark, where we've got an interesting little passage for us today for our gospel reading. So,
Yeah.
the lectionary compilers have helpfully skipped over the parable of the
Parable.
parable of the prodigal son. Which is lovely, and there's lots of rich imagery in there that you can talk
Mm.
for ages about. We haven't got that, so if you were expecting that, because we were doing the ones before that last week, they've skipped over it, presumably because it appears somewhere else. What have we got instead, Jenny?
The parable of the shrewd manager, or, depending on which version you're reading, parable of the dishonest manager.
Okay, so we're somewhere between shrewd and dishonest.
Tells a lot
Well,
about the Bible you're reading.
it's not the easiest passage, so let's get into it and see what we can make of it.
Okay,
So
you're going to read it for us,
I'm
yes.
going to read it. Yeah, here we go. So we're reading this from the NRSV. Actually, one of those ones is lots of different interesting translations. This we may come on to that later. Anyway, let's say we go. Then Jesus said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, what is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer. Then the manager said to himself, what will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes. So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, how much do you owe my master? He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. He said to him, take your bill, sit down quickly and make it 50. Then he asked another, how much do you owe? He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. And whoever is dishonest in a very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust you with true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Okay, so that's a nice easy one then, right?
No, it's not easy, but sometimes it's more difficult to talk about it when it's easy, isn't it? Sometimes when they're straightforward, it's like, well, what do you say? It's there.
Yes.
So now we've got something to discuss because
Okay, so what is your first impression on reading this?
my first impression is I would entitle this passage how to win friends and influence people, that famous book.
Famous book, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that the version you're reading entitled it dishonest, but then it talks about being shrewd, and shrewd and dishonest are two different things.
I think there's an unhelpful translation here, and this is where sometimes it's helpful to look at other. So the NIV translates dishonest wealth as worldly wealth. In
Okay.
fact, of course, I don't really do the whole Greek thing, right? But there's a footnote in the NRSV that says that actually the Greek word is mammon, so that's what they're
Um,
translating, and they're trying to find a thing that And I think in a way, mammon was a sort of I don't it's a sort of alternative god, isn't it? It's that
yeah,
so
the god of wealth, really. Yeah,
the god of wealth, yeah,
or
and so
wealth is
it's
a
not.
god. Mm.
I don't know that it's saying that all well, clearly not all money is dishonest, but you know,
Yeah.
I think, but yeah, I think that's quite a. I think worldly wealth may be a more helpful translation to us than dishonest wealth, because it sounds like Jesus is encouraging us to be dishonest and then use that, which I don't think that's what is going on here.
No,
Um,
I have very little to say on this. I have one other thing that I've highlighted, so even physically
you've got the
highlighted,
highlighter out.
actually physically highlighted. I'm going to say it now in case we don't get to it at the end. And that is verse 8, which I think is key. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own than are the people of light. So the issue perhaps just that the people of the world are more savvy
Yeah,
than the children of God. I
I
mean,
think that.
and I think that could be true now,
Yeah,
really.
and that
I
actually we
think
need
there are people that
to
make,
rise up and get a
yeah,
bit
I
more
think there
savvy.
are people that make interesting decisions, but actually they're more savvy in the long run than sometimes we are. So I think that's true.
I think the other slightly difficult translation bit is the final verse where it talks about welcoming us into eternal homes. If you read Tom Wright, he translates that as homes that will last. He says it's not referring to kind of getting to heaven. So again, I think there are some probably some helpful kind of translation bits that we need to be aware of that may sort of send us off in the wrong direction. I do think you're right about that being a key verse, and I think there is a bit of a sense as well of which. So we're back on the money theme again, aren't we? Which Luke does love. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. So I think we entitled our podcast last week, "Stop telling me Jesus to give away all my possessions," but we're still very
Yeah.
much on that sort of theme of money,
Um,
do with it, how to live with it.
yeah, so there is, I have done a little bit of reading. So this is kind of a bridge. Who was I reading? Some commentary.
Okay,
So I think they were saying it's kind of a bridge between the parables of the lost coin and the lost son of like poverty going into, because then we get the rich man.
we've
And
got
this
the
one
rich man
starts
and
with rich
Lazarus, haven't
man.
we?
Yeah, so but this is kind of this one's got rich and poor in it, and then we
Yes.
get to the rich man. So it's the middle ground.
Okay.
But that's why we can't deal with the lost son,
Oh,
which
okay.
is
So we've got
sad
to get to the next one.
because we like the lost son. But yeah, we've got to get to the rich man and Lazarus. So
So,
go on then, give us your worldly wisdom from what you have
well,
read.
I think that you are right that Jesus is challenging us to think about how we live. And I think my take from it is something about, money doesn't really matter. That seems to be a bit of a theme in what I've read as well. Part of what Jesus is saying here is money doesn't really matter. It's a sort of, you think it matters, you think it's everything, but actually it doesn't last. It's a kind of ethereal thing that will actually, and I suppose classically that scene is you can't take it with you when you die. It doesn't matter. We put so much store by it. We spend so much of our time thinking about it. That essentially we worship it. That's the final phrase, isn't it? You cannot
Yeah.
worship, you cannot serve both God and wealth. This stuff, Jesus says, doesn't matter. So it's not that there's an element of which it doesn't really matter what you do with it. That's not to say you should be dishonest. I don't think that's what Jesus is saying at all. But it doesn't matter what you do with it. So use it shrewdly to, you know, uh,
So
get what you need.
what? Yeah, go on. What
Well,
do
to
you
get what you
think?
need so that, yeah, when trouble
What do you
comes,
think of the
you have some
school of
friends.
thought that says that he, the manager was just taking away his cut and not anything else?
Well, I think one commentary I read on that sort of suggest that that's all very nice, but that, it basically takes away the power out of the story. That, yeah, he was being a bit dodgy. He's definitely being a bit dodgy.
Yeah, I felt it was a bit too convenient that
Yeah.
he was just cutting off his
Yeah,
ear.
it just
Yeah,
sort of actually what that does, it just sanitizes the story. So, oh well, that doesn't matter then. Whereas actually,
yeah.
Jesus is really asking us to think about it. It is a hard one because it sounds like Jesus is commending dishonesty. That's why it's difficult, I think.
Mm.
Um, I don't think Jesus is doing that, but you've got to sort of. I think it's more like this stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's more following the theme, isn't it? That everything we thought mattered doesn't. So,
Yeah.
accumulating a lot of wealth and working towards that doesn't matter. But it also, relationships matter more than wealth. And that's been a bit of a
Yes.
theme as well.
Yes.
That
And actually, that
winning friends and influencing people is
yes,
more
winning
important
friends.
than
Yeah. So, and if you need to use your money to
or
build
somebody else's money.
relationships, or somebody else's money, you may be even better. If you need to use money to build relationships, then that's what you should do because ultimately those are the things that last. And I guess, see, that's true, isn't it? That is true, even without an eternal perspective. In a way, it is your relationships that matter. I
Let
mean,
me just tell you a story that's come to me.
you
Okay.
tell us a story.
About using somebody else's money to win win friends. So when I'm going to name him, when Charlie, my son, was at school, for school dinners, you got a little card, and we used to have to load money onto the card. Did you have to do this?
No.
Okay. So, so I
No,
would
I don't know because our boys always had packed lunch. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. So yeah, so I would put £20 on the card, thinking, well, that's your dinners for a couple of weeks, isn't it? Okay. And 2 days later, he would have no money on it, and like I'd have to, and I said, where had it gone? And he said, well, I had to buy so and so lunch because they didn't have lunch, and I had to buy so lunch, and I just basically made a lot of friends. Was really, really kind, really, really generous with my money.
Actually, that's a great story. That's a great story. I might use that on Sunday. Actually, I think that's a great story as an analogy to this because he's using your money, and in fact, he's not even really being dishonest about it, is it? It's kind of
no, and he was being generous with it. I mean, he wasn't just buying a lot for himself. He was basically just being generous and buying people things, and they haven't got it, and I've got £20 on this card.
And then he had to come back and see you.
Yeah, I wasn't so keen.
Actually, that's a great picture. He's using your money to make friends. And I think that's what Jesus is saying here. This money stuff doesn't matter. Actually, relationships is what matter. Do what you can, especially when a crisis comes. So Tom Wright is big on this, as he always is, really, about, he says he pictures it as God is talking to Israel. Israel is in trouble. Use what you can to make friends so that when you get kicked out, as they were by the Romans, of course, in 70 AD, you've got some friends around the place. And therefore, how do we... And he then uses that as an analogy to say for the sort of established churches today, like the Church of England, don't sort of rest on your historic traditions. Use what you've got to make friends around the place so that, with other Christians and with other churches. That's kind of the analogy that he draws. So, I think there is... And this idea that we're all supposed to be naive all the time and not think things through and not be a little bit shrewd. Jesus clearly doesn't think that, does he? He tells us elsewhere to be as gentle as doves and as cunning as snakes or something. So,
oh yes, that's a good phrase. He does. Cunning as something.
I think we have to live with money, don't we? I think that's one of the things that we've wrestled with all through this readings in Luke, really. How do we live with money? And here it is again, and it's going to come back even more next week in the rich man and Lazarus. In the rich man and Lazarus, how do we use it? How do we live with it? We have to have it. We can't not live with it because we need to eat and we need homes and all sorts of things. But how do we live with it? How do we live with it shrewdly? What does it mean? What really matters? I think that's what Jesus is asking us to think about here.
That's great. I love the fact that if I don't say anything, you'll just fill lots of words.
So what would you like to add? Oh, shut up.
Absolutely nothing. That's fine. That's all of it. That's what I think too.
Yes, whatever he said.
Our relationship has never been like that. Whatever he said.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
No.
No.
But on this occasion it does.
On this occasion it does. On one occasion out of 1 in a million. Well, there we go. There's some thoughts on not the easiest parable, but actually it is quite a fun one because it does make you think. I think that's what's great about it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to take out of it. For those who listen who are preaching this week, I think there is enough to go at. I think it's not as though you're going to sit there thinking, well, they all know this.
Yeah, don't sanitize the story. I think don't sanitize it.
No, absolutely.
Let's not explain it away. Let's take it as it is, and then work with what we think Jesus might be trying to say.
Yeah.
And let's think about that whole thing. You cannot serve God and wealth. That's incompatible, and that's a challenging message. There's no question about it. We all find that hard. Yeah,
actually, I'm going. Obviously, that's the phrase that's in the passage, but gentle as doves, cunning as serpents. I think.
Find that else from somewhere else in Mark, I think.
It is. But...
Anyway, well, there we go. Thank you for listening, and have a good week. We'll be back for some more thoughts on whatever's coming next.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you for listening to In Conversation with Jennie and Mark. Please subscribe for more episodes on all the usual podcast platforms.